Hello, I am the Irish guy, and if you aren't English, then you would have probably spent the last week biting into a chunk of sweaty fish and chips, cackling like a witch watching Mrs. Brown Boys. I mean, all of you would have been beside yourselves with glee, laughing like those hyenas out of The Lion King. I mean, in the last week alone, I've seen this meme more than my own goddamn reflection. I mean, for many of you, last summer's events were so painful that honestly, every time you see the Italian flag, oh, you must get a PTSD flashback, forcing you to vomit wildly on the floor. I mean, you know, a bit like every time Kanye West hears a Taylor Swift song on the radio, oh, he probably feels the immediate need to shove a bread knife in his ear. For England fans, you would sooner wake up to the fat opera guy of those Go Compare adverts, forcing you to eat cheese off his inner thigh, than revisit that Euros final match. Those Declan Rice tears are too much to bear. For me, I would have drank them with my Rice Krispies. So for England fans, now watching Italy fail after they embarrassed you in front of the world, ruining your big moment at Wembley, this is now the equivalent of in 6 months' time, and Chris Rock gets to watch on as Will Smith finds his wife in bed with the lad who played Gollum off The Hobbit. I mean, even the England fans who had a soft spot for Italy, that final has tempered and changed their views. I mean, Louis Benvenuti has gone from this, reacting to Italy failing to make the 2018 World Cup.
Obviously, I feel a certain allegiance to Italy, and my blood, honestly, started to boil. Cannot believe this has happened. I can't believe that Italy aren't going to be in the World Cup. Words defy me, honestly. It is an absolute disgrace. Oh my days, just... oh. Unbelievable.
To this in 2022.
Getting texts saying unlucky despite being an England fan. Make it make sense.
See that penalty shootout defeat was so painful. Even the man with Benevetti in his name is now distancing himself. I mean, this is a bit like Seth Rogen now pretending he's not friends with James Franco, or Jesse Lingard unfollowing he who must not be named on Instagram. By the way, trying at 200k subscribers as soon as possible. All of you have come over here from the other channel in your droves. Absolute legends that you managed to find me with your big magnifying glass. If you're new here, just slap the big fat red subscribe button, you absolute legends. Anyway, back into the video. I don't think England fans have taken as much second-hand pleasure in the downfall of another nation's football team since Portugal lost the World Cup semi-final in 2006. I mean, speaking of which, I'm a man who believes in footballing miracles. North Macedonia's great run is not going to stop at beating Italy. No, the same way when Greece knocked France out of Euro 2004, they didn't then go on to get chewed up like a burger made of Hungarian sheep meat in the semis with the Czechs. No, they went and completed the mission. If North Macedonia lose to Portugal tonight, no, that's not the end of the underdog story. It'd be like if in Rocky's fourth fight, he then gets paralyzed from the waist down. Actually, that was the script of $1 Million Baby. I watched that the other night. Yeah, immediately felt like swallowing a plate of broken glass. Honestly, don't watch that. It's very depressing. But no, I'm sorry. Come back to this video at 10 p.m. tonight. And trust me, Portugal will have lost. We are in for yet another shock. I mean, honestly, how many of you out there can predict the exact moment when a 37-year-old man will burst into tears? Well, stick it in your diaries, lads. 21:35 tonight. Halfway through MasterChef, that is the moment we're about to see Ronaldo cry as his last World Cup ends against the tip of Macedonia. But Italy, Italy, how? They conceded 2 goals in their World Cup qualifying group. How has this happened? They're out of the entire competition. How unlucky can you be? I mean, Italy's last World Cup knockout match was the final in 2006. You know, when Zidane got sent off for the headbutt. This country would have gone 20 years, at least, having seen just one sad and lonely World Cup win, when you snuck your way past a team with Ricky Lambert on the bench. I mean, again, it looks like the BBC were drunk that day. I mean, look at the match report. I know Roy Hodgson largely show the international decision-making of a melting snowman, but I don't remember him lining up with the defensive midfield duo of Phil Jagielka and Danny Welbeck. And I certainly don't remember a centre-back partnership of Baines and Jordan Henderson, but never mind the Calciopoli scandal or Godfather 3. This is the biggest shame in Italy's history. Missing 2 consecutive World Cups. It's unforgivable. It's been a week from hell. I mean, Giorgio Chiellini is a man who openly mocked Tottenham for having a weak mentality. Sorry pal, you haven't played a World Cup match since Luis Suarez bit your arm. And that was 405 weeks ago. There has been 4 million minutes since that moment. Nearly 250 billion seconds. I mean, Gianluigi Donnarumma has been a top class and #1 goalkeeper since 2015. And he's played about as much World Cup football as Ed Sheeran. I mean, I thought the 2010 World Cup was bad when you, as defending champions, then finished bottom of the group behind New Zealand. You would think you would have a chance to come back from that. That was 12 years ago, and you still haven't avenged that. I mean, not only that, but Italy, if you ignore that one match against England in 2014, other than that game, Italy haven't actually taken the lead in a World Cup match inside 90 minutes since beating Ukraine in 2006. Again, over 8 million minutes ago. Pippo Inzaghi was on the bench that night. Yeah, he's nearly 50 years old now. I mean, this is Italy we're talking about. Italy! It only feels like 2 minutes ago that this team had turned a corner. They were on a nearly 40-game unbeaten run under Roberto Mancini. I mean, this is a man who dragged Italian football out of a muddy ditch to restore them as European champions and one of the footballing powerhouses on the planet. I mean, Mancini, let's not forget that his managerial career was stuffed so far in a bin. Had he failed here, in his last chance, then his next gig would probably be applying to be the presenter of an Italian game show like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or The Chase. I mean, come on, our last memory of Mancini was losing a cup final to Wigan 9 years ago. You know, when armed with the riches of Manchester City. I mean, it is a bit unfair. When you think of Man City's first league title in 2012, not for 1 minute do you associate that with this man's face. No, Sergio Aguero is the face of that title win. Mancini is the face of that cup implosion to Wigan. But lads, since being sacked in 2013, he's failed to win the Turkish league with Galatasaray. He returned Inter Milan, you know, a place where he's won Serie A titles, but on his return, finished 8th and 4th. He was also spanked in the derby and was knocked out of Europe by Wolfsburg. And then finally he lasted a year at Zenit St. Petersburg before finally being dumped in the cold snow. Mancini has largely been forgotten for the last 10 years. Christ, look, he's a Premier League winning manager, and yet the only Premier League job he's been linked with was Crystal Palace 5 years ago. You know, in the running to replace Alan Pardew. I mean, Italy was his last chance at redemption, and lads, he took over an Italy team who failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. If you just forget about Euro 2020 and instead just focus on World Cup football, then Mancini has failed. Before him, Gianpiero Ventura was the country's biggest footballing joke. I mean, it's bad enough he's a manager who shares the same name as one of Jim Carrey's clownish creations, but to not take Italy to the World Cup, that stigma never leaves you. It's gonna be scribbled on his tombstone. I mean, Christ, in his next job, he was only given 4 matches in charge before Chievo sobered up and sacked him. 4 games, a little over a month in a job. That was the consequence of the directors clearly not having forgiven him for this, and he recently resigned after a year with FC Salernitana in Serie B after failing to reach the playoffs and being publicly insulted by the president. I don't want to scare you, Mancini, but failing to bring a colossal staple of world football to an international tournament, it is the worst thing any manager can do. I mean, sure, failing in club management is a bit different. Yes, David Moyes took Man United to 7th in the league, was dumped out of the cup semi-final by Sunderland, and was ripped apart like old newspaper in the city derby. Yes, it's a blotch in your CV, but because of the fast-paced nature of club management, then it's fine. You can quickly recover. And look at him now, competing for the same European prize as Barcelona. But failing in international management, it is a long, drawn-out process over many years, and such is the level of scrutiny, of press intrusion, of everyone in the country having an opinion on you. There is no escaping that. I mean, before failing with England, Fabio Capello was seen as one of the greatest minds in football. His previous 4 jobs were AC Milan, Roma, Juventus and Real Madrid. Well, since quitting England in 2012, the only club gig he's taken is one in China. I mean, Christ above, Steve McClaren was given England's golden generation. It was a mouth-watering array of world-class stars, but in his final game in charge, there is no excuse. A Wembley nighttime match with Croatia. A tough game, sure, but I'm sorry, a manageable one with that squad. But look at his decision. Whose idea was to give Scott Carson a go in nets above an experienced David James? You know, someone had already played in international tournaments and was on his way to winning the FA Cup with Portsmouth. I mean, choosing to leave Ashley Cole on the bench in favour of Wayne Bridge. Are we sure this man wasn't spoon-fed lumps of paint as a child? And armed with all the world-class centre-halves at your disposal, and you choose to stick an ageing Sol Campbell in your back 4? Someone just a year of signing for Notts County in League 2? This was a heavily pressurised do-or-die nighttime match. I mean, it's a starting 11 that was calling and screaming out for leadership and experience. So explain to me then, Steve, why did you leave David Beckham on the bench for an out-of-form Chelsea dish towel like Sean Wright-Phillips? Steve McClaren never recovered from this failure of not being able to take England to Euro 2008. But people forget, there's a guy who took Middlesbrough to a European final. Clearly he's got some managerial ability in there. Clearly he's got some tactics in his skull. And yet because of this colossal failure, people just pretend that he's an incompetent ape who shouldn't even be allowed to eat with a knife and fork without parental supervision. I mean, before he took the England job, McClaren was linked with every top job in the country. I mean, these These were actual headlines in the media.
Chelsea will turn to Steve McClaren to be the next manager should their overtures to Porto manager Jose Mourinho fail. Sir Alex Ferguson wants to control the succession to the manager's job at Manchester United when he moves upstairs, and believes Steve McClaren, his former deputy, is the man to take over from him. I'm not surprised to see Steve McClaren linked to the Liverpool hot seat. He has a big name as a manager and he's got the England involvement.
Yes, this guy, before the England poison chalice, he was hot property. Cookers, he was winning trophies with Middlesbrough. He was 2004's answer to Graham Potter. And yet, after 2007, he was only ever offered one Premier League job, and that was Newcastle. I mean, McClaren left his England role 15 years ago, and he's managed to snap up just one Premier League job since then. International football ruins you. That's why recently he was forced to go and get a consultancy job in Israel. It's why he spent the last decade hounding Derby County and QPR for a job every 20 minutes. I mean, that Newcastle gig was a disaster, winding up in a costly relegation. I mean, then again, it wouldn't be the last example of a Geordie getting a McClaren and then winding up in financial ruin. Did anyone watch the Fall of the True Geordie vid from a few years ago? Come on, that was a clever joke. I'm sorry, Mancini. I know overall, yeah, you've been an overall success, and one last gasp defeat to North Macedonia should not overwrite what a brilliant turnaround job you've done. But the cruel reality is that it will. It doesn't matter that you've got a 63% win record and that you've only lost 3 competitive games. I mean, great. So did McClaren. He only had 3 competitive defeats as England manager, but nobody cares. Nobody remembers the fact that he actually put 23 points on the board in Euro 2008 qualification. I mean, whisper it quietly, that was the second highest points total that England have ever amassed in the qualifying groups for the European Championships. Throughout the entire qualifying process for Euro 2008, England's goal difference of +17 was only bettered by 4 teams, and 2 of those countries were given the opportunity to play San Marino twice, so does that really count? England kept 9 clean sheets in 12 group games and still did not qualify. I mean, you have to admit it, Steve McClaren was unlucky. I mean, you can just ignore the context. The fact that England were only pipped by a Russia team who'd actually go on to reach the semi-finals of Euro 2008 anyway. I mean, Croatia topped the group and they were beginning the start of a golden generation which 10 years down the line would bring them to the World Cup final. So I would argue that losing at home to North Macedonia is worse than Steve McClaren's bottle job. And look what happened to him and his career. Mancini. Months ago, you were linked with the move to Manchester United. No, I'm afraid now, your next job in England, oh, you'll be lucky to get offered a gig at Stoke. Football is so short-termism. If Mancini had walked away in the summer, he would have the pick of Europe's top super clubs. I mean, maybe if he'd just taken a year out to instead do the gardening, and then by next May, he'd probably be replacing Max Allegri as the boss of Juventus. But no, now, I'm sorry, Bobby, but you are the Italian McClaren. Anyway, that's what do you think, or let me know in the comment section below what you think about Italy's big shame. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe as always. Talk to you in a while.